true story, I'd never seen that video before. It's amazing when you just can snippet things together, but I'm deeply honored to be here and delighted to be here this morning. I consider it just a high privilege and honor. I think the highest privilege and honor of my life, other than being married to this beautiful lady here for 31 years, to be able to see this nation. But for Terry, I could not serve. That's true. And maybe but for Terry, I wouldn't have won. Who knows? But it is a great honor to serve you and your families, and I want to thank my family for this, their sacrifice. Lindsay is here, our oldest daughter, and she's a wonderful part of the leadership of our party, and I thank you, Lindsay, for everything you do. I see Shannon Kendrick, she's our district director, and also, because today's, it's not an official congressional event, this is a party function, so I have a little more running room in FEC laws to recognize a few more folks, and we have, of course, Richard Jenkins. I think all of you know Richard. He's our campaign manager. And let's see, Esmel Meeks, he was that young man who was giving out the bumper stickers until his hands clenched tight. He's here somewhere, and I see Paul Bowler is here, who's volunteering with us today. And Richard, maybe have I met some? Have I maybe lost someone? Or
we have Damien.
Oh, Damien's here. Damien in the corner. I always feel safe when Damien's around. Okay, well, what I wanted to do today is, we're a bit over the halfway point of my service in Congress, and so almost like a performance review, like we have when you hire someone about halfway through the year, you stop and you go, okay, how are you doing? And so typically when I do a performance review, I would always start out by asking the person to kind of give an overview of what they think they've accomplished and what some of the challenges that remain are. So I'm going to walk you through kind of my job description and how we've applied ourselves toward addressing those. But before I do, I want to thank Jack. Thank you, sir, for the kind introduction, for the really the opportunity to be here, the kind invitation. We are always thinking about and keeping in our prayers Ken Longo, our chairman, and I look forward to his return real soon. I think he's on the path to recovery. So he's had a few health concerns, but I think he's on the path to recovery. So we feel really good about that. Dick, thank you, sir, for your prayer, for keeping in mind our men and women in uniform. We are here and able to be here in freedom and to express ourselves and to deliberate and to debate and to discuss the future of our great republic because of the sacrifice that has been made and is being made by those who wear our nation's uniform. So somewhere right now on a hillside in Helmand Province is probably some Lance Corporal sitting up against a tree in the middle of the night, probably half scared to death. Nothing wrong with that. But he's there, and our men and women in uniform are defending us because we've asked them to, and so we honor them and we think of them and we keep them in our prayers this morning. All right. I believe that someone who seeks office, and then certainly one who holds office, needs to have a few things always committed to moving forward. First is to be accessible to those he or she seeks to serve. So being here today is my practical effort to be accessible, both through teletown halls, trips throughout the district. We'd love for you to come to Washington, and we try to always make ourselves available. If somebody from the district, in terms of priority, you go right to the top. Right to the top. If you're from the district, you go right to the top. So come and see us, and if you have a child 12 or under, bring them with you, and I can bring them on the House floor and they can vote with me. I think I need to be, listen. I need to be a person who listens. So often, I've gone through, I don't know how many of these. I call it the wisdom of the district. When I meet with people, I am making notes, because I believe that in abundance of counselors there's wisdom. So I'm to take this wisdom and go, and of course with my core convictions, my own values, the life experience that I've had, and bring that to Washington and do what is right. And then just be accountable to you. I really believe and know that I work for you. If I ever forget that, smack me upside the head, because that's what happens so often. Something starts to change in those who serve in Congress for some length of time. They get this sense, they get somehow disconnected from those they serve. Your number one defense for that with your representative is right here, Terry. She does not mince words, and it's a wonderful thing. She'll tell you exactly what she means, and it's a good trait. Okay, what did I say to you along the way to all of the 2nd District? I said, look, there are many things that we're working on and many challenges that face our country, but it's incumbent upon leaders to set priorities, to say of all the things we could do, what must we do? And I set forth 4 priorities. The first, job creation. The second, cutting federal spending. Third, being the strongest advocate for our men and women in uniform and their families, and our Blue Star families and the families of the fallen. And then finally, is changing Congress rather than having Congress change me. Now let's go back up to the top, and I'm going to give you a very quick review of this, because the quicker I go through this, the quicker we'll get to questions and answers. And I think that's the best part of our time together this morning, is the question and answer time. On job creation, it's the unleashing of the greatest job-producing engine the world's ever known, the American entrepreneur. It's not federal employment. My father worked for NASA. I honor the work that our federal employees do. They love their country. I'm sure some of the folks are here this morning who have worked or do work for the federal government. That said, the key to our prosperity, overwhelmingly, indisputably, is the American entrepreneur. So my job and what I do every day is fight for him and her, those who are willing to put precious and limited capital at risk, by fighting against bad regulations and bringing forth good policy. Fighting against bad regulations. Top of the list, the Affordable Care Act, I think one of the most misnamed pieces of legislation in American history. The Affordable Care Act, my vote reflects my record on this of repeal and replace. Second, the EPA. It truly is out of control. I stand before you today as an American who sees himself as an environmentalist. I do not concede to those on the other side that they care more about our environment. I'm a recreational fisherman. When I have a few minutes, I don't have much time right now, and I'm not complaining. But if I had a choice, where'd I go? I go out to the 3rd Island, 12 or 1 o'clock at night with some friends. We catch some stripers. I don't want to catch a striper that's got a lesion on it. I do not concede to my friends on the other side, the proverbial other side, that they care more about the environment than I do. They may care as much, but they do not care more. And the EPA is indisputably, in my view, out of control. We are regulating ourselves. There's all kind of funny bills. They've got funny sounding names like Boiler Mac. These have very practical implications to the economy, not only of the Commonwealth, but America. There are massive, massive regulations that the administration, some are getting through because we can't stop them, some we are able to stop. But this is an administration intent on just increasing the heavy hand of government. American energy independence, job creation through energy independence. Boy, coastal energy represents such a great opportunity. At every economic summit in this area, the first thing you hear is, well, we've got to diversify our economy. I've been hearing that for 25 years as a businessman. Well, the time is now to do something about it. Our pain is so acute that it's time to act. So I introduced legislation that would do just that. You know, the president's rhetoric is not matching his actions. When he stood on the House floor, I truly believe I was the first person to stand up when he said, I'm all of the above person on energy, all the above, all forms, right now, all out. I really think I leapt to my feet. I think I was the first person, because I believe that all of my life. We need to move toward American energy independence. Up to 20,000 jobs off the coast of Virginia, that are here in this market. A moratorium, listen carefully, a moratorium on coastal energy is a moratorium on jobs, which is a moratorium on tax revenues that we desperately need. I'll be a Republican who will tell you we need more tax revenues because we need to reinvest in our roads, when our state troopers haven't had a raise in 3 years, our teachers haven't had a raise in 3 years. What I'm saying, listen carefully, is to grow the economy. That's how we increase tax revenues and tax reform, and I'll talk about that in a bit. So these are the practical things that I'm bringing to the table and moving forward in my service to you on job creation. Now, the second part, cutting federal spending. One of just two members of the Virginia delegation who voted for the most conservative budget that we have on the House floor. It's put together by the Republican Study Committee. And the budget vote, in my view, and in so many's view, is the clearest indication of where a member stands with respect to expenses. The expense trajectory that this country is on threatens the very foundation of the Republic. I tell my friends, you can't tax your way out of it. You couldn't literally do that, nor would it be morally right to do so. We are spending now around 24% of our gross domestic product, and I've strongly advocated for us to be in that 19% range. This is well below our historic average. And I'm fighting to make our government more efficient, more effective, and at every opportunity. Now, the third area was defending our men and women in uniform. It includes these things. First, in my first 2 weeks of public office, going right up against the Secretary of Defense, then Secretary Gates, and saying, no, sir, I do not agree with your decision on TRICARE. Increasing the fees on TRICARE, to me, is a nothing less than a breach of trust.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know there are men and women who come up to me, some veterans will say, well, Scott, I appreciate your view, but I'm willing to give a little bit more to help our country. I deeply respect that. I deeply respect that. But I truly believe, as my life experience has taught me, from the age of 18 on, there was a basic assumption that if you went in the military for 20 years, you got what? You got lifetime medical care for free. Now, if we as a nation don't like that agreement, we don't think we can afford it going forward, we can talk about what happens to those who are entering into the service right now. But I was raised in a home and by a man and a mother as well who said you honor your commitments. If you don't like your commitment, okay, you honor it, and then later on you can change it when that expires or whatever, but you don't just pivot. So it's important that we honor our commitment there. It's important too, and as Republicans, that we consider this. I think we've been too quick to apply military force generally. I think this is for both Republican and Democratic presidents. It's not specific to President Obama, but I strongly objected to our intervention in Libya. Notwithstanding what happened to Gaddafi, the end does not justify the means, and the story is not yet told about how all this unfolds. But I objected to it on the House floor. I introduced a bill that would prohibit us, because when the president, any president, this president or any president, has the time to go to the United Nations, but does not have the time to come to Congress, it is not the King's Army. He does not have the right. And too often, I believe, our own party, we have this mindset of America needs to be strong. That means the application of force. We need to be loath to apply force. Not unwilling, deliberate, thoughtful, to the extent possible. Build a consensus among the people as expressed by the will of the Congress, the elected body closest to the people, including the House, namely the House of Representatives. And finally, changing Congress rather than having Congress change me. First line of defense is Terry when I come home at night. Now, secondly is this. I believe in leadership by example, a principle I learned a long time ago at Parris Island. So I was very careful from the very beginning, to basically self-impose a lifetime ban on lobbying. I just think that's wrong for people to flip around and then, become part of the system. I was very deliberate in declining every federal benefit that I possibly could. Why? Because I think it's important to remove the incentives for a career. There are good and reasonable people who disagree on this matter. Some don't believe in term limits. I do. If I can't get it passed right now, I voted for term limits, I'm going to self-impose term limits. 12 years, I'm going to come home the sooner of 3 events. Either 12 years, self-imposed term limits, we get the job done, we fixed this trajectory that we're on as a country, might take a while. Or third, you have to decide if you want to send me back. But if you'll send me back, I'll keep fighting for those 4 key areas. Now, there are 2 other things that I'd like to share with you just very quickly, and because they are true threats to our liberty, and I don't think they get the attention that they deserve. The first is this. You don't hear about this very often. It's the federal taking and buying, or through whatever mechanism, the ever-increasing ownership of land, not by private citizens, but by the federal government. Do you know the federal government owns almost 1/3 of all of America? This is not often discussed, even within the Tea Party, I don't think. This is a threat to liberty. Surely we need some federal ownership of property. NASA needs a launch pad, and we need naval bases. But something's wrong here at 1/3, and does it ever decrease? No. The trend is only one direction, and I literally have a bill I'm introducing. The name came to me the other day because I was wrestling with a name. It's called the STOP Act. Stop taking our property. And it works. It's very simple. What it says is that the federal government needs 10 acres over here for a facility. There's no problem with that. Go and buy it. But you've got to sell 10 acres somewhere else. Okay? So it just holds the government right where it is. I'd love to, maybe if we're really good, we'll actually start rolling that back maybe to 25%. I'm an advocate for that, but I'd take right now a full stop. No pun intended there. A full stop. Okay. That to me is a threat to our liberty. And then finally is this. There's a kind of insidious, hidden force that's coming out of Washington, and it's impacting every state. And that is federal mandates to states. Unfunded federal mandates. And at its very essence, think of what those are. Those are basically 536 people, 435 in the House, 100 U.S. senators, and 1 president imposing their will on 310 million Americans, 50 governors and the legislative bodies of all of those states. It's not right. And it is forcing taxes to be raised. It will inevitably. Watch it. The Governor McDonald, he's a wonderful man and a dear friend. Talk to him. He's got a $4 billion load coming through federal mandates. You just have to process that. So I'm fighting against federal mandates that go down to the states, that take away the authority and the running room of our governors, and also fighting against the ever-increasing expansion of federal ownership of land. And with that, I'm Scott Rigell. I'm serving you in Congress, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning.